everybody. Welcome to the daily podcast. Yeah, sorry, I kind of disappeared. I know I'm supposed to post daily, but then this week I got a little bit hectic, starting to get sick, not feel well, and I did not post anything. Although I promised I'm gonna be posting on a daily basis, but I didn't. But on the flip side of it, there is going to be a change in the podcast. I mean, the plan for the podcast was for you to improve your English either by listening to podcast or by recording them. So yeah, from now on, you can record your own podcast and then send it to me and I will post it on the Upfluent podcast. So about a topic maybe that you are maybe interested in or that you like a lot. And there could be anything that you want to know about and you research it and you record a podcast about, and then I will post it here. And this is gonna help you a lot because most of the time when you listen to podcasts, you're just absorbing information, right? And now you have a way to practice to talk about which you learned, a book that you read, and you can talk about or record it and then send it my way, and I will post it here. Anything, talk about anything that you find interesting. Yeah, it's gonna be posted here. Yeah, just send me the podcast and I will record it. You have the Discord server. If you don't have my contact Discord server, send the podcast link there or the audio file there, and I will post it on the Upfluent podcast. But yeah, appreciate everybody. So today we're gonna talk about memory. This is one of the interesting things that I wanted to talk about a long time ago, but I haven't gotten the chance to do so. So memory is something very interesting. I know most of you keep talking, especially in class, say, I have a teacher, I have a fish memory. I'm like, I sent you a podcast to listen to. And they're like, teacher, I forgot to have a fish memory. Yeah, that's interesting. So when you talk about memory, what is this memory? How does memory work in a way? And what kind of techniques should we use to improve our memory? Right. So memory in a nutshell is like encoding, basically taking information in and then storing them, keeping that over a long time. Then there is retrieval. That information that you stored, you are gonna retrieve or you access whenever you need. That's basically memory in a nutshell. There is like a more refined definition for it, the one that talks about sensory memory and short term and working memory, then long term memory. These are are generally used by psychologists. They call them the three stages of memory. The first one is the sensory. You sense something in the world, right? Or you see something, you feel something, and then it comes to your short term memory or working memory. And then if you think about it, if you repeat it all the time, that thing that you sense or that you saw, it goes to your long term memory. That's how memory is described by psychologists, at least. Of course, there are types of memory apart from like how we store information. There are types of memory. So there is the iconic memory, which is your visual, what you see. Usually it's very short, something that you see something, it's zero point 0.2 or zero point 0.5 seconds. It's very, very, very brief. For example, you see a word even after closing your eyes. This is something like a very, very, very like flash. For example, seeing a world even after closing your eyes. So that's iconic memory. There is the echoic memory. This is related to auditory sounds. Basically, this lasts longer, 2 to 4 seconds longer. When someone asks you something, what did you do? It is stuck in your head for 4 or 5 seconds, or ask you a question or says something to you, you remember it, or it is stuck in your memory for long. So what is important to you right now is the working memory. You can just ignore all what I said before But this is the thing you need to focus on the most: the working memory. It is so important that, in a way, it is used for understanding longer sentences. If it is a longer sentence, it's your working memory that helps you understand that. It's the thing that holds the grammar rules with speaking together. Without working memory, you would not be able to make sense of sentences and grammar and syntax. It also processes meaning in real time. So your working memory is basically everything that you have about your memory. Most of the time, if your working memory is overloaded, you tend to pause frequently. You pause a lot, or lose the sentence structure. And sometimes you forget what you started saying. So it's important that you clear your working memory. You don't think about something else before talking. If you want to talk about a particular subject, just forget about, I'm saying forget as if it's easy, but there are ways to do it. Like, you can relax, you can just focus on just one particular thing, which is the sentence you want to utter, and that's it. And you are not going to be making as many mistakes as possible. A lot of my students, sometimes they ask me, teacher, I'm at C1, but sometimes when I'm in a conference or a study day, I just tend to make mistakes, although I know the rules, I know this, I know that. And that's your working memory. There is like so much going on in your brain. It's stress, something that you can't control, which can be, you can train yourself to calm and de-stress, especially if you have problem with like fear of public speaking or fear of crowd. Sometimes you just tend to make more mistakes than you should, which is very, very sad, to be honest, that it happens to us. Like, your psychology is working against you in situations like that. Now, why do we forget things? Most of the time it happens to you, and you ask yourself, why did I forget about this person or that thing or that thing? And it is annoying sometimes to forget. Your brain is like a sponge. It absorbs water, but over time it no longer has that water absorbed. The first thing that happens when you don't use your memory is decay. If you don't use something, you lose it. You know the particular phrase. Um, there are certain things that can run in the background. For example, muscle memory. Those things, yes, you use them for a while, and that's it. For example, knowing how to ride a bike. You just learn it once, and you don't need to like repeat it all the time. But you keep driving, right? Or you keep riding your bike, and but if you don't ride a bike for, I don't know, 10 or 20 years, you might not lose like the entire functionality, but maybe just it feels a little bit fuzzy at first, but you can pick up the pace. But when it comes to knowledge and learning, sometimes if you don't use a language for a long time, it's going to be very difficult for you to get that back, because those are words, they are tied to a particular context. Even though you used them before, it may take you probably months or years to get back on track, so to speak. Yeah, and apart from decay, there is interference. So we lose memories because old memories and new memories compete for space. It's like you have a limited storage, and you have to delete something to keep something. The new information, obviously, you want to keep, and therefore you are going to delete the old ones. The other reason why we lose memories or we forget is when you encode, when you move something from short-term memory or working memory to your long-term memory, is there is poor encoding, right? You didn't understand the material enough. You didn't connect it with something. You didn't relate it to something that's interesting for your brain to easily recall that. You just probably memorized, and memorizing is really, really terrible as a way to learn things. Memorizing is always bad because you tend to forget because you didn't really do anything interesting. But if you understand something, you're more likely to repeat it. We're not bots that we memorize things and we will never forget it. There are special cases about memory. There is this guy I think I watched a long time ago. There is a documentary about this guy. So he would fly over a certain city and he would draw every single inch of the city. And it was very surprising. And the thing is, he was hit by this baseball on his head, and it somehow made his memory stronger. And there is another case of this guy. He does not forget dates from the day he had this accident. I think that was the baseball guy. Yeah. And it's insane, like how strong his memory is. So yeah, sometimes you just get lucky and you are basically a genius. But some other time you're not. If you think about it, you see people who are like memory wizards, right? You know what they do is like they create this palace or create meaning to objects or things instead of like just randomly memorizing things. You just create meaning and connection to them, because if you remember just facts just like this, it wouldn't really make sense, right? But if you connect them to emotional events or something that makes sense, you could easily remember them, right? For example, I would ask you to remember a digit like 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, right? Just randomly like this, you wouldn't be able to remember it. Most people could recall is like 7 digits, but you can recall longer than that if you create like a story. For example, one met with 2, and then they got into the neighborhood and they found the 3 lying around, and then after that they went to the store, and when they got to the store they found out that 4 is lying around, and after that they went straight to the hospital because 5 was sick, and after and then 7 came to visit, and then later on uh, the doctor 8 came, and he just put them in this like sequence, and there's like a story. This is like more exaggerated story, but this is how people do it. They create meanings to numbers, and then you can easily recall them. 1 did this, 2 did that, and then vice versa. My story was a little bit boring, but the way they do it is slightly more interesting than that. So the most important question, if you have a terrible memory, can you really improve that? Yes, you can. There are a lot of ways you can make your memory stronger. So you can either use techniques as the one we talked about before to memorize things, and also try to like encode things more meaningfully. There is this book actually I read a long time ago by Tony Buzan. I think you might like it. Tony Buzan, Mind Mapping. And in their book, because they co-authored the book with his brother is like a neurosurgeon, and what they did is like they combined the brain functions and meaning, right? And what they found out is that if you connect learning to more than one function, you are more likely to recall it. So if you have something really big, for example, you want to study for the exam, you can just draw a mind map and everything, and you add like symbols, colors, stories, right? Also like some logic to it. If you combine like the left and the right hemisphere functions of your brain, you are more likely to remember that than if you were just to use your right or left hemisphere. If you just use one function, you do not recall. It's going to be poor encoding. You do not recall fast anything, to forget a lot. That's why there is this guy that you meet like, I don't know, 20 years ago, and then until today you still remember the name. You're like, how do I still remember this name? There must be something. Maybe they made you feel embarrassed, or they made shook your emotions. There was something that impressed you about this person. So there were more functions involved in just meeting this particular person than just one. Just it was a random number. If it was a random student of mine asked a question one day, I'm less likely to remember that. But if they make me feel a certain way, right? Maybe angry and mad, I would probably remember them. I'll remember all of my students that made me mad. All of you. I remember you all. So yeah, this is like one way to do it is basically improve your encoding. And they do this a lot in learning. They say mix messages with words, right? If you do that, if you mix both of them, you are more likely to remember, or sounds with movements, right? If I move are more likely to remember stuff, right? And that way you create like multiple retrieval paths. Your brain, when it wants to retrieve information, it would look here and there and there. So it's going to be easier for you to recall that information. One of the most important techniques in memory retrieval is this spaced repetition. What you do here is review information on increased intervals. Start with like 1 day. So for example, you learned a certain rule today. You wait for the entire day and you review that information again. Then you review the information again in 2 days, then in a week, then in 2 weeks, then in a month, then like in 2 or 3 months, and then in like a year. If you do this, like your brain is like you're carving a path in your brain and you're doing it again and again. So your brain knows that that path is dedicated to that particular memory because you keep reviewing it, right? And this is a very good technique in improving your memory. Like if you do this more often, you will find that actually you learn so much in a very short time. But the other technique that actually very effective is interleaving. So what you do is connect topics together, put them all under one branch or all under one theme, right? If they are related, just connect them together, learn them in as a group, and that way your brain remembers, okay, this is a group, this is a segment, so I'm more likely to retrieve this than if I were to remember them irrelevant information. If it's irrelevant, your brain cannot find connections. So it's really difficult for you to remember all of them together. So if you have a theme, an entire theme, and you connect all topics or all related topics to it, it's going to be easier to be recalled. Very important. Yeah. It's important that whenever you want to study for the exam or study for something, you need sleep. A lot of people don't sleep, which runs counterintuitive to what you're doing. Instead of recalling information and learning fast, you'll end up not memorizing a lot because your brain needs a lot of sleep. If you sleep a lot, you tend to remember a lot. But you have to study a lot to begin with, right? And then sleep for like 10 hours, 8 hours. And yeah, it's going to be very good for retrieving memories. Also, another factor that is tied to memory is exercise. If you exercise regularly, you tend to have a strong memory by default, right? Because again, healthy brain, healthy mind. If your body is healthy, then your mind is also going to be healthy. Yeah, the other thing that I talked about before, stress. Try to de-stress as much as possible. If you are in a meeting and you are very stressed and you want to speak English, you're most likely are going to be making a lot of mistakes, even in your own language, not just English. So you have to try to find a way to de-stress, right? There is a very interesting technique that I used to use when I'm stressed. So try to cross your fingers or breathe in and breathe out slowly because your breath can control you. So breathe in and breathe out slowly and you'll try to de-stress very quickly. But yeah, that's today's topic about memory. There is so much to say about memory. I know I did not say all of the facts and information related to memory. But yeah, hopefully today's topic was interesting. Yeah, see you next time. I can't wait for your podcasts. So yeah, send me the podcast and I will post it. Bye.